Well, she's back. Our resident lawyer, Despina Priala of boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay, with us every Thursday. She offers her legal expertise by providing some general advice on the latest hot topics. She's got an experience that spans more than 25 years in the area of property and commercial law. She also prepares wills as part of estate planning and litigation. With us once again on this Thursday. Hi, Despina.
Good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning, Despina. Good morning, Wayne. Nice to have you both back. Another Talking Law segment after a week away. Did you have a good break?
I did. Thank you. It was very busy, but it's good to be back this week.
Good. Oh, I'm glad. Well, this story I think is for everyone, really. I love these because I think at some point in your life you might be selling something, whether it's a car, a trailer, a motorbike. And Despina, you've had this very interesting interaction with a poor guy, a bit of a sticky situation, I should say, in regards to him selling his car and then left without the cash and the car has gone off into the distance. So can you tell us what happened and how can we avoid this going on?
Yeah, I'd love to because I felt for Paul. And if Paul's out there listening, Paul listens to the show and reached out to me recently and said, look, can you help me? So what happened was Paul sold a motor vehicle, as we may all do at one point in our lives. And the buyer provided a bank check for payment of the car. Now, bank checks, I've said on the show, I think before in the past,
You're not a fan.
No, I mean, bank checks are not as good as cash in the bank 100%. Bank checks can be cancelled, dishonoured. So it's not security 100%. Someone gives you a bank check, you go, oh, okay, this is 100% secured. They can't cancel it. Well, they actually can. And there's issues potentially of fraud if they do cancel it down the track. But the point is that it can be cancelled. Now, so you don't have security and you say bye-bye to the car, and you got a bank check, you go happy days, but it's not going to be happy days. And it wasn't for Paul because in this case, the buyer didn't cancel the check. What happened, as Paul explained to me, is that the check had his name wrong. Ooh. So the bank would not accept it and did not bank the check. So he's left with no money, but the car's gone. And he reached out to me and said, can you help me? What can I do? Now, that's a difficult situation because, one, you obviously say, well, have you reached out to the buyer? Yes, but he's not picking up the phone. Oh, okay. So that doesn't help. No, he's not contactable apparently, and hopefully by now maybe Paul has been in contact with him. But when this came to my attention, I thought this is a very good example of to perhaps give some guidance to people out there as to what to do when they are selling, whether it's a car, boat, trailer, motorbike, any of those channels. What really should the process be when you're doing that to make sure that you're fully protected as a seller? So I thought we'd just run through some steps to help people, because one of those steps is do not accept a bank check or, goodness me, not a personal check either, because that's even worse. So we don't want to do that. We want to actually follow another process which is commercially acceptable. And if somebody bucks up at this process, which I'm about to explain, then it's really a red flag. Okay, because we're not really asking for anything unreasonable. As I said, bank checks can be cancelled. So obviously, if you're selling a car by whatever means, through whatever advertising regimes, someone makes an offer. Now, usually that person puts down a deposit, might be $1,000 or $2,000 to say, look, I'm interested in the car. Could you hold it for me for 3 days? Typically, and they go away and think about it. Maybe they have to get finance, maybe not, whatever the situation is. So they pay a deposit to the owner. Now, at that point in time, there definitely should be a receipt. So you write out a receipt. Even a handwritten receipt is fine. We're not, wanting fancy typewritten receipts if, that's not required. Just a handwritten receipt, date it, said this is a receipt for a deposit of $1,000 for the sale of motor vehicle X, and describe the car. Put the seller's name, the buyer's name, both parties sign it, very simple. And then each party has a copy, great. So then each party's got evidence of that. So the seller won't sell to someone else and the buyer goes off and organises their balance monies. Now, when they come back and say, yes, I've got all the money organised, let's do the deal. So when the person comes back to collect the car, this is what we want to get to. We don't want to accept a bank check. That's not what I would recommend to people because of the situation where, yes, checks can be cancelled, but also if you don't actually happen to check the check, And if your name is spelt wrong, or maybe a digit's not in there, so it's the wrong amount, and you go to that bank all excited, then you're in real trouble. Okay. So when the person comes along, you say, look, okay, I'm not accepting a bank check or a personal check. It's got to be cash. So when I mean cash, I don't expect someone to turn up with a suitcase full of $20,000 worth of cash.
Hey, I'm here to do the deal.
That's right. I mean, plus you have reporting requirements nationally anyway if you have more than $10,000 in cash that you give to someone. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about going to a bank and depositing that sum directly into the person's account. Direct deposit as cash, telegraphic transfer as cash, as cleared funds. Mm-hmm. So you would go off both parties, you'd go and do the transfer. If you have, everyone has a app on their phone, like for banks. So you would go and look on your app, verify the money has come into your account and it's cleared, right? So it's come in, it's cleared. Once that comes in, you say, great, now I've got the money. Here's your car. Sign all the forms for the transfer of motor vehicle registration, and happy days. Everybody has got what they wanted.
And can that happen I mean, if we're talking amounts of 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 or more, how quickly does that happen? I mean, is it instantaneous?
Yep. So if you go to so if you go to a branch and you do a telegraphic transfer, it can take up to 2 to 3 hours. And you and you can ask the bank to do it. So if you do it in the morning, it'll be there in the afternoon. But if you've already transferred, say, that initial deposit to that person's account, it's already saved in your system. So when you do the next transfer, it should come through straight away, but it's got to be cleared funds. You got to go to the bank, say, I need you to transfer this amount into this account as cleared funds. Okay, and it can be the same day, yes. If it happens to take the next day, then you have to wait as the seller. Do not hand over the vehicle until that money comes in, because that's your security. And then you hand over the car. Each person signs these forms, the transfer of registration forms, which is very important as well. That's evidence that you've sold the car, and that's evidence that this person's bought the car. And that's important too when someone drives off with your vehicle. Obviously, Transport, Queensland Transport hasn't picked up on the registration change yet because no one's lodged the form. So if that person drives away, gets a speeding fine, runs a red light, gets a mobile phone infringement, who do you think gets that fine? The owner. So, you know, that form that you get the buyer to sign is proof to Queensland Police that, look, I sold the vehicle. It's not the fine for me. You should issue it to buyer X. Okay, so what I wanted to tell Paul, if he's listening out there, and any other person that's been in this situation, if you're in this situation, which is unfortunate, and the buyer is not going to take your calls and not going to help you out, which they really should, obviously, then the other thing you can do is lodge a security, a personal property security on the Personal Property Securities Register, and you lodge a security in your name over that vehicle until that money is paid to you. So if that person ever wants to sell the car, the person you sold it to, the buyer, they won't be able to deal with that car, sell that car, or do anything with it until you take off your security, which you won't take off until you've actually been paid. So that's really important.
So can anyone do this, lodge one of these securities?
Yes. So in the next segment, after the break, I want to talk about the PPSR a bit more, the Personal Property Securities Register, which is national law. And I want to try and give some insight to people about what it's all about and what they can do. And a recent win that we got for a client in relation to another issue, but it's all about securities and how to protect yourself and maybe how to get them taken off or to lodge and when it's appropriate. So, let's talk about that.
PPSR, the secret weapon. Ooh, more details coming up with Despina on Talking Law. Stay tuned.